let's see how you can create this report right here in Power BI from ground up. My name is William, and in this video my intention is to help you get started with Power BI the right way. But first, what is Power BI? It is a suite of products that Microsoft has put together for you to be able to access your data, analyze your data, associate different sources of data, that is, create relationships, and then once you visualize, you are able to share and distribute your reports on the web. So your data can come from Excel, it can come from an SQL server, it could be a Google Sheet. You can get data virtually from any source that you use to manage your data. Power BI in itself consists of the Power BI desktop. You have the Power BI service, which is on the cloud and you can access on the browser. And you also have the Power BI mobile app. Power BI desktop is free to use, and indeed you can download it for free. You just go to your browser and search for Power BI. And you can click this first link that appears here. From here you can go to products and then look for Power BI desktop. On this screen, then you are able to download for free, or you can use the second option here that says see download or language options. So this takes you to this page where you can click download and then be able to select one of these choices depending on whether your machine is 64-bit or not. So with the installation out of our way, let's now see what data we are going to be working with today. So as you can see here in my folder, I have these 4 files. We have the product details. We maintain the product details as a separate master list, and this is how it looks like. It basically stores the details about our products. Then the next 3 files are different regions and how they send their data to the analyst. So the sales from central region, as you can see, it's a text file that is tab delimited. The Nairobi file itself has 2 worksheets. The first one is for 2020 data, as you can see from this date, and it is more or less cleaned up. So then for 2021, this is how the data looks like. And finally, we have this data set from the west and coast region, and these are the details that we have tracked over time for the 2 years. The goal here is for us to be able to combine the 3 data sources and come up with one long table that has these various columns that we can analyze as one. So let's go ahead and open Power BI desktop. This is the screen that you'll meet, and on the left side you can see you can get data. If you have any reports that you've done before, they will be listed there on the left, and these others are just links for you to be able to interact with Power BI at different quarters. So we'll just close this screen here. From here you can see from the home tab you can get data from different sources. The common ones are already listed here. So what I'll do, I can click get data, that drop down, and at the bottom I click more. Alternatively, I can just click the button that says get data. So this is the screen that will pop up, and as you can see you have hundreds of different sources that you can get data from in Power BI. So let's get started with the Excel workbook and connect to each of these files one by one. So as you can see, it will ask you to navigate to where your source data is. So I'll be connecting to this Nairobi file. Let's get started with that one and click open. So for any data source that you connect to, you'll be having this screen that is the navigator. And when you click any tab here on the left, it will give you a preview of the data that you'll be connecting to. So let's go ahead and put a check mark on these 2. We've seen how they look like. At the bottom right of this navigator, you have 3 buttons. The cancel one will just close the screen. The load button assumes your data is clean and you simply want to continue doing the report. But the transform data is the one that will open up our query for you to shape and clean your data. So let's go ahead and click transform data. So when you click transform data, you open Power Query Editor, as you can see at the top left there. And this is how it looks like. On the left side, you will have the tables that you have loaded. On the middle section of this screen, you will have a preview of the data. And on the right side of the screen, you have the different steps that are being applied. Now, I have only 2 steps here, but for your case, you may have maybe a promote header step and changed type. Usually there is a setting that you can put off to avoid that. So to disable that, you can click file and then go to options and settings, options. Then on this screen that appears, if you had those extra steps, is because the type detection here was enabled so that it always detects I want you to go ahead and say never detect. It's my preference. I don't want to have probably additional steps as I do the transformation along the way. You have that option in the global section that will turn it off for all the Power BI files. But if you want, you can do the same just for this current file down here, data load. And once you do that, you uncheck that, you can say okay. Then if you had those extra steps, just for consistency with what I am doing as you follow, you can X or delete those steps. If you hover over a step, then you can cancel that step. But if you have the two steps like my case, we just proceed together. So let's get started with Nairobi 2020 file. As you can see, what we get is the data as we saw it in Excel. But row 1 should be our proper headers for this data. So how do you get row 1 to become the header for this data set? You go to Transform tab. On the left side here, you'll see use first row as headers. You click that icon. It will promote that first row to become the headers for this data set. And you can see on the right side, it records that step. The next thing we want to do here is probably call this one TRX date for transaction date. Then this one will be customer region. The rest of the column are looking just fine to me. We need this one that will connect to the product details. So here we have no much cleanup, but what we need to pay attention to as a next step is that we need to double check the data type for each column. The data type is indicated on the column header. On the left side, as you can see, there is ABC123 in each of the columns. It basically means it doesn't understand the data set or in terms of the data that is residing in each of the columns. So you want to press Ctrl A to select all the columns. Go to Transform tab and click Detect Data Type. Then it will apply the proper data types for each of the columns. As you can see now, the first one is a calendar icon, meaning it's a date. Most of the others are text, that's why it's ABC, but the amount is 123, means it's a whole number. So you have, once you do detect data type, it's good practice to just go through each of the columns and double check that the correct data types have been applied. Now let's go now to Nairobi 2021. Here the transformations are different. The first thing probably is these first rows need to be discarded. They were just informational rows from our data source. So how do we remove the first two rows? In Excel, I'm sure you just highlight, right click and then delete. That option is not available here. You go to Home tab, remove rows, and you remove top rows. So if I click that one, it will ask me for how many rows from the top. I type 2 and press OK. Then next we have the first row, therefore having the proper headers that we need for this data set. Previously we've gone to Transform and used to use first row as headers. The alternative is to click this table icon on the left here, top left of the table, then use first row as headers. The next thing I want to do, the last column here is the total sale. I want to tab delete on the keyboard or right click it and choose remove. That's how you delete a column. Then if I come to this first column, the next thing I want us to do here is to fill these gaps. So what we have here is that these gaps should be filled with the item in the previous row. The same case down here, this should be filled with the grand view. So to do that, you have again different approaches. First, you could right click that column and choose to fill and fill down. The alternative is to go to Transform, fill and fill down. Then the next thing we need here is the data set, the way it's arranged. From January, Feb, all the way to the last column, which is June in this case, they are all talking of the same attribute of the data. This is the amount that was sold for each of the months. So it's good practice, and in terms of the data structure in Power BI or even in Excel, it is important to have a column that has one attribute about your data as opposed to having these multiple columns talking about the same thing. The disadvantage of having the data like this is if you were to create a pivot table, for instance, you'd have to drop each of these columns like 12 times or 6 times in this case, which is a bit cumbersome, and the better approach is to have a column that defines the period in terms of the month and the year, and also a column that has the amount. So what we need to do is to select the anchor columns. Anchor columns here means the ones that will not be changing. Then right click those columns and choose to unpivot other columns. I'm using unpivot other columns because later on we shall have data running all the way to December. I wanted to pick those extra columns that are not currently selected. So with that done, what you'll have is that the 6 columns will now be two columns. One that has the attribute in terms of the period or the descriptions that were there in the column headers, and then the value, which is the amount. So this one we'll call it TRX date. We shall convert it to a proper date in a few. So I press enter. I'm double clicking the column header to rename it. This one is amount. For this to be a proper date, you may go to transform and go to this icon, the date icon, and click pass. If you do, it will detect that you have a period for year and month, and then it will default it to the first of every month across board. If you may, you can go ahead and still, when you're in this column, go back to transform and click date, month, and then choose to have end of month. The next thing I want us to do is to press Ctrl A, go to transform and detect data type. So that data has 6 columns so far. As you can see, we are missing the region column here. So we need to go to add column tab and click custom column. We want to call it region. And here, because I'm typing text, I have to open double quotes and type Nairobi. Press OK. You can make it text, no harm. So we want to go to the home tab still on this Power Query side and do new source. This time round, let's pick text/CSV. I will pick that one. It will ask me to navigate. So that's the folder and that's the file, Sales Central. You get the same navigation window, and here it just basically gives you a preview of the data in that file. Press OK. Here again, you may get the additional steps to promote headers and changed type. In that case, probably you can retain those ones because that's the next thing I want to do here. Use the first row as headers here to promote the first row to be proper headers. This quantity column is just additional. It's not common in all the data sets, so I want to delete it. I select the column and press delete on the keyboard. So this is the data that we have. What it is missing is a column to tell us which region it is. Again, we do like previously, add a custom column. I call it region. And then down here, after the equals, open double quotes, it's central region. Press OK. Press Ctrl A, go to transform tab and detect the data types. So that's the final data set. The next one, if I go to home, new source, Excel workbook, it was this one for Western and Coast combined. So I click open, and just like before, we get the navigator and I can place a check mark here for sheet 1. It was just one worksheet in that file. So it will open up this. Let's go ahead and promote headers here. If yours has proper headers, that's fine. The client details one has different attributes about this data. As you can see, from one piece to another, we have a semicolon that separates the client name from the region and the channel. You could right click here and choose to split column, then choose split by delimiter. You can do the same from the home tab. When you're in this column, you just go to split column and choose by delimiter. The alternative is to go to the transform tab, split column, and choose by delimiter here. So as you can see, it's able to detect that you have a semicolon as a delimiter. You have 3 choices presented to you here. Do you want to split at the leftmost delimiter? That means it will just split at the first occurrence of the semicolon from the left side of the cell. The second option, which is rightmost delimiter, it will mean it will check from the right side of the text. But where it says at each occurrence of the delimiter, that's what we want to do here because we want to split into 3 different columns. Press OK. So you get this column, this and this. I want you to pay attention to this Western. As you look at this, as I select even Coast here, at the bottom of the screen you'll see before letter C there is an additional space here. Okay, and that is consistent down through the rows, and it's because we chose the semicolon for a delimiter. But if you check the previous step here on the right, you'll notice after the semicolon we had a space, and that's the one that is coming along when we split here. So we need to select these 3 columns, then go to transform, format, and then trim to remove the additional spaces. Then the next thing here we want to do is to rename these columns. The next thing I want to do here is press Ctrl A, go to Transform tab and detect the data type. We have 7 columns at the bottom. If I go to the central table, I also have 7 columns at the bottom of the screen. Same case with Nairobi 2020 and 2021. So we have 7 columns across board. The next exercise here is to combine all these 4 tables into one long table. So we do that from the Home tab. On the right side, you'll see Merge Queries and Append Queries. We need to use Append Queries and Append Queries as new because we need a new table created out of these 4 tables. Here the default is 2 tables, but you can go ahead because we have more than 2 tables. Click 3 or more. The table you are currently in, you will be having it on the right side, but for the others which you need to either double click to send it to the right or select it and click Add here. So I'll do that. I think I needed to rename this from sheet 1 to coastal region. Let me double click. We will rename after this and press OK. You'll have this data set combined all through. So let me first of all rename these 2 tables. Look at the bottom left here. I end up with 8 columns. So why is that? I had 7 columns across board. As you look at this, we have item code and we have product number. Okay, and that's why we are getting these additional columns. It means in all the 4 source tables, we need the column headers to be consistently typed. You'd have to double check for each of the tables. Let's confirm this is the one that has product number, so we need to rename this one to item code. Press enter. So that if you come back to this combined sales data, you'll notice now we end up with 7 columns, and that product number column is no longer visible here. For the transaction data, I would want to default everything to the end of the month. So I'll come to the transform, click date, go to month and choose end of month. The next thing, I will go to the Home tab, new source. We need to bring in the product details table. So it's an Excel file. I'll click that one and choose product details. Click open. So when you click open on this navigator, you'll notice something different compared to the others. Here we have a worksheet, which is the lower version here. And then this first object here is the special Excel tables. Usually it will have a blue border on the upper side of this table icon. In this case, I just need the product details. So you go ahead. So this is the data that was loaded. On this table, we do not do much. It's simply Ctrl A and detect data type. Now we are ready to load this data back to Power BI for further reporting. Now when we are loading, we do not want these tables, Nairobi 2020, Central, Western, to be loaded back because they are all feeding into the combined sales data. So to avoid confusion, and to stop these tables from being loaded, you have to right click one by one, the ones you do not want to loaded, and uncheck this option that says enable load. Unfortunately, you cannot select multiple tables and do it at once. I hope the Power BI team can have that as an improvement. Right click here and disable load there. You'll notice they get italicized to just denote that they will not be loaded. So these 2 are the ones we are going to load. So to load or to close this window to save what we've done and close, we go to Home tab and close and apply. So as you can see, it's processing that and it will load it back to this reporting side in a second. So it's done loading the data for us to continue doing the report. And on the right side here, you will see a preview of the columns coming from each of the tables if you can open them up. Let's see what we can come up with here. I want to know what was the total amount from the word go. So I'll click this 1, 2, 3 card. It will appear on the screen here. Then on the right side, I will tick amount. And as you can see right there we have the total sales. So we can go ahead and create a table. So on the right side where you have visualizations, you click table. It will appear on the canvas. You just position it where you want it to appear. Then on the right side, I want to pick a column called segment from the products table. I just place a check mark on it, and then go from the combined sales data. I place a check mark on the amount, and as you can see, I get the breakdown per segment. Now, if in your case it doesn't give you this breakdown and you get one figure all through, let's go on the left side of the screen. You have three icons. The first one is the report layout, where we are. The middle one is the one that you use to see or to view your data, so you can see the data that you loaded. And then the last icon on the left here is the one that helps you to create relationships. So in my case, it was able to detect the relationship between these two tables, basically or primarily because the columns are labeled the same way in both tables. If it were not labeled the same way, there is a chance it will not get that relationship, but you can create. So I will go ahead, right click this line and choose to delete the relationship so that I emphasize some concept here. So if I go back to this first icon on the left, you'll notice now this is the report that you get. The number is the same in all the rows, and it's because there is no way to filter your sales data from the products table. Not at the moment, because we've disabled the relationship. So what we need to do is to go back there and create a relationship. So between these two tables, I like laying out such that my dimensional tables, the lookup tables, will be on the upper side, and then the tables that have the facts or the final data that I'll be analyzing, I put them on the lower side of the screen. So the common fields here is the item code, so I'll go and select item code in any of these tables. Okay, I can start from the products, or I can start from the combined sales and drag and place it on top of the same column with the similar or the common column in both tables. As you can see, it creates that line there, and that line means a lot. On the one side where you have a number one, that's the product side. It means the product appears once in that table, but it can be repeated multiple times in your sales, as is the norm. And then there's a direction or an arrow pointing the direction how the filters will flow. It means the product can filter the sales table, but sales table will not be able to filter the products table. So if I go back to the report side here, you'll notice now the numbers are able to be sliced by the product segment. You can go ahead and try a different chart altogether. So I click on a white area here. Let's go with a bar chart here this time round. I will come and position it here. I want that to be broken down probably by category, and then go to amount again. So that's the breakdown by category. So as you can see, it's a matter of dragging and dropping the various fields for you to create this simple report. On the right side, you have the fields coming from the dataset, and you simply choose a chart, drag and drop the various fields that you have. So we want to take this report to the next level. But before we do that, one of the key tables that you may want to create when you're creating reports in Power BI is called a calendar table. It allows you to see your data in different time dimensions and be able to compare different data sets using the same, say, for instance, the year. In this example, I'm going to show you how to use a DAX formula called Calendar Auto for us to get the calendar. So I'll go to the data view on the left side here, these three icons, so that I'm on this view. Then if I go to either Home tab or Table Tools, you'll see a new table here on the right side here. If I click that, you'll see on the formula bar, it's giving that default name table. I want to call that calendar. Then after that, I will say equals calendar auto. That one, you can see in terms of the syntax, it's asking me to define when my calendar ends. If it ends at the end of the year, 31st December, you don't have to define it. But if it ends in between, you may want to define that. For now, we just open and close the bracket. If I press enter, I get a field or a column called date. This calendar auto will scan all the tables in your model and then be able to give you the earliest date in that model, then give you the 1st of January in that year. It will also check what is the most recent date. In this case, it was 2021. It will give the latest date to be 31st of December in that year. So in terms of the formatting of this column, I want to get the data type to be a date. Probably in terms of the formatting, I want to go with a short date. Next is to add additional columns that we are going to be using for the report. So I can use new column here on the right side. So the new column will be called year, and I will say this is equals year. Just like in Excel, it will ask you for the column that you want to extract the year from. So it's from the calendar date. I close the bracket and press enter. And I can go ahead and right click and choose new column again here. I want to add the month number, equals month, just like in Excel. Again, here we are calling the calendar date. And when I close bracket and enter, I get the month number. The last one I want to do is the month name. Here we use the format function. It will ask for the calendar date that you want to format in a certain way. Put a comma and put 3 M's in double quotes, close bracket and press enter. It will give you the first 3 letters of the month as such. Let me right click again and do new column. I would say I want FY at the beginning of the text. So this one is year. Let me just call it short, equals FY in double quotes. I want from the right side of the year 2 characters. So that's our calendar. You can continue and add extra columns, but for now let's leave it at that. If I come to the report side, on the right here, I can choose the slicer here. Click that. I want to pick the year from the calendar. If I choose the year, because it's numeric, it will take that as a slide. And if I move this one to the right, so that is simply 2021, you can see there is nothing happening to this report, whether I put 2020 or 2021. Why is that? We've seen previously, if a table has no relationship with another, you're not able to use it to slice and dice your report. So you'll go back on the left side here, you have the model view. I can start from the calendar this time around and drag and drop it on top of TRX date. So if I go back to the report view now, you'll notice now if I choose this one to be 2021, you can see the numbers are responding accordingly. So that is how you create and use a calendar and the relationship thereof. Now, to take this report to the next level, we need to start creating measures. So I'll go ahead and from the combined sales table, I make sure I'm on that table. Hover over this, either the name of the table or any of these columns. If you hover over, you'll see some 3 dots on the right side there. Click on that, left click, and then choose new measure. The measure here, we shall call it sales. On the formula bar, it will be typing equals, and this one is a straight sum of which column? The amount column in our combined sales data. Then if I close the bracket like that and I press enter, you'll notice because the measure is selected, I get what we call the measures tools up here, and I can apply the 1000 separator or the comma separator as a formatting. If you want, you can add decimals here, but I'll leave it at 0. If you look on the right side of your screen, you'll see the measure has a calculator icon, and I want to go ahead and click the visual called card again, then come down here and tick the sales measure that we've created. If I place a check mark, you can see I get the same value. So a measure is simply an aggregation of a given column. The advantage of doing it as a measure, it can be reused and it can be subjected to different contexts for your reporting need. So I'll go ahead and create additional measures here. Make sure you're on that combined sales table. Click that and choose new measure. Alternatively, I can do it from the whole ribbon here, new measure. So I'll call this sales same period last year, SPLY for same period last year. And here we shall use the function called calculate. And what do you want to calculate? We want to calculate the sum of amount. In this case, because it's in a measure, I will call that measure. I'll type that sales measure there, put a comma. Then to subject it to, so that it can return the same period last year, you need same period last year as a function. This function asks for a list of dates from your data. This will be from the calendar table. So if I type calendar and I pick this date field, that will be sufficient. And then if I close the bracket for the 2, the next thing I'll need to do here is to just apply the comma separator there, so that it can be formatted once and for all to be used for different needs. The last measure I want to do from the measure tools up here, I can click new measure. Then I'll call this one sales year on year, Y&Y percent, equals to what? This one is a division. What do we want to divide? The measure called sales, comma, divide that by sales previous period, SPLY, and close the bracket. Outside the bracket, you say -1. You can check the formula logic on this slide down here for you to see why I'm saying -1. So those are the 3 key measures that we shall use for this report. I want to apply the percent formatting to this one and probably make it 1 decimal place. Now, if you're finding value in this video, please give it a thumbs up to support this channel, and I'll be very happy. You can go ahead and share it out with your friends and your colleagues. I'm sure they are starting out their journey in Power BI. That will be very helpful. Thank you very much. Moving on. So it's time now to create the interactive report. So I'll create a new page here altogether at the bottom. Then I click the card. It will appear here. I want to go ahead and check sales measure. Okay, I will position it there. Then I'll do another card again, 1 to 3. I will position it next to this one. I go take the same period last year. That's the value that you get there. I will position it there. And one more time, I click the card, position it somewhere there. I want to pick the year-on-year change, and that's the percentage you get. Right now, these numbers have no much context, so we need to bring in the year slicer so that we can be able to slice for a given year or even a month. So I'll go ahead and insert a slicer and go ahead and choose the year short version. So this is the one that you're going to get. I will position it there. Okay, I'll go ahead and format it so that if I come here, slicer settings, instead of a vertical list as it is currently, let me go ahead and change it to a drop down like that. Okay, then resize it accordingly. I want to position it here. Okay, I can make a copy of this one and then change to month name. But let me just go ahead and create a fresh slicer, then month name from the calendar, then place it here again. I want to change this to a drop down again, slicer settings, a drop down, and that's where it will be positioned. Okay, we shall format it further later on, but that's the way it looks like. If I choose a given year like 2021, now this makes sense because it means the sales for 2021 was 31 million. The previous year, which was 2020, is 49 million. And the change from 49 to 31 is negative 36%. Probably let me go ahead and remove the decimal place from this measure. We can always add it back. Let me click that measure, type 0. So it shows as 0 decimal place here. The next thing I want to do on these 3 cards, I will draw over them like that and apply a common formatting to the 3 buttons of the 3 cards. So I'll go to the formatting, then look for the callout value. The callout value is the number that you're seeing there. I will change its font to probably do Comic Sans here. Then I'll reduce its size maybe to 24. I think I'm okay with that, and make it bold. You could change the color if need be. So that's how it looks like currently. I want to apply some shadow and then make these boxes the same size. So when they are still selected, come to the formatting choices here, then click General, Properties. Then the height, I want to make this 190, for instance. The width, I want to make it 180. So that's how it looks like currently. I want to collapse that properties, open up these effects, and then for the background it's okay to have that. I want a visual border around these so that I can see where it starts and ends. I want a faint gray like that. If I click out, you'll see there's that border around it. It's taking shape. Let me select again, come back to general effects, then not background but the visual border. I want that to have like 10. That's the rounded corners. You'll see now they are all rounded at the corners. Okay, then again select them, come back to general effects. I want a shadow on this, enable it, open it up. The color, I want a faint color again, like maybe this first grayish one, and I want it not on the bottom right but at the center so that it appears all round. So the next thing I want us to do is to show the percentage contribution of the different regions that we have here. So you can use a pie chart, you can have a donut. I want to go with a trim up, so I click trim up, then go on the right side here. I want to pick region from the sales table and take the sales measure. As you can see, I get that breakdown per region. I can resize it like this if I don't want a big thing. Maybe that should be sufficient. I want to go ahead and apply a few formattings to this. So one is the data labels. On the right side here above the charts, click these formatting options here. Enable the data labels. As you can see, it shows that as an amount. We shall change to a percent in a few. And then if I open it up, I can pimp up these numbers maybe to 11. You can make it bold and so forth. The category label down here is what you're seeing as the name of the region. So I want to go back to this side for the visualization, and then down here on the list where you have the values, where you put sales, I want to click that small drop down there and then change this to show values as percent of granted. So let's go ahead with that, and you can see basically it translates that to a percent. Without you having to work. You can use DAX for that if it's gonna be repeated elsewhere. We can control the decimal places here by going back to the data labels section, and down here for the number of decimals we can put 0. So the next one I want us to create is a column chart. So I'll select the column chart here. It's the fourth one on the right, and then I want the segment from the products table. I pick segment, and then take the sales measure, and that's the breakdown you're gonna have on this chart. So if we go ahead and apply a few formattings here, for instance, if I come here, you'll see this icon basically means the chart is being responsive. I prefer to put that off. So if I search for responsive and put that off, that will be better for me. Then for the x-axis, I don't want to label it segment. I can put that on the title. So I'll open up x-axis and remove the title here. I put it off. Then I go to the y-axis, and then this one I put the title off, and I want the axis itself to turn off completely. Then I want to enable data labels. Down here, I enable data labels. I could change their color altogether. If I open up values, I can make them bold. Next, let's now create a bar chart. So I'll pick this bar chart. It's the third one on the right where you have visualizations. And I want that to show breakdown per channel. So I'll take channel, and then I'll take sales. At this juncture, you may be confused whether I want to pick the amount or sales. So let me hide the amount so that people can use the measures. I will hover over, click those three dots and say hide. So this is the breakdown. Let me just move it. Now for this chart, which we are done by segment, let me apply some shadow. So I'll come here to the general, open up effects on the right here. Background is fine, but let me apply some border just like we did with the cards there. So I want to go with that gray and then make it 10 again here. You can use a higher number if you want them to be very round. That's fine. Then I want to go to the shadow, put it on again with a faint shadow of gray, and then instead of bottom right, I want it center. I want to use the format painter to translate this formatting to this new chart, the sales by channel. So I click the format painter from the home tab. Now click on this other chart. You can see it comes with the data labels, the formatting, which is bold here and there. So let's go ahead and select an area chart this time round. I want that to show the sales and also to see the sales same period last year in one chart. Then I want to apply from the calendar. I want to see the month name. So I place that in the x-axis, and that's how it looks like from the word go. Okay, so I can go ahead and apply some formatting from this chart. I can transfer the formatting. So if I come here, format painter, and I click on this area chart, it will come with the shadows, the data labels, and all. I don't want the data labels for this area chart, so I'll come to the formatting on the right and disable the data labels for this chart. Probably I need the y-axis, so I put it back. Now, something that you'll notice on this line chart is that the months are not ordered in the right way. If I look at how this sorting has been done, you'll notice on these three dots on the top right of the chart, if I say sort axis, it's sorting by sales and descending. Okay, that shouldn't be the case. It should be sorting by month, and then instead of descending, it should be ascending. But as you can see on the horizontal axis, we still have a problem with how the months are being ordered. So we need to go to the data view, go to the calendar, and select this month name. For every month name, let me bring up the ribbon so that you can see that. With the month name, I want that to be sorted based on the month number. So we have a number for every month. So I'll say sort by on the ribbon here, and I choose to sort by month number. When I do that and I go back to the report side, you'll notice now things are looking just fine. So one more chart now that will show us the growth rate from one month to another. So I'll do that as a column chart. So let me go ahead and select column chart on the right, clustered column chart. If I click and then go to the calendar, again I want the month name to be on the x-axis, and then I want that to show the year-on-year growth rate. I place a check mark on that. As you can see, this shows Jan to June because the data runs up to 2021 June, and as you can see on the slicer we have 2021 selected. So first of all, let me transfer the formatting from this area chart. So I click format painter from the home tab and I click on this one. It will come with that formatting. For this chart I want the data labels. Probably I could have used this one then that has the data labels. I use the format painter and I click so that they appear as such. Of course, after June it doesn't make sense to have them, but I leave them out for now. We need to apply some conditional formatting to this chart so that if our change is positive, I want that to be green, and if it is negative, I want that to be shown as red. So to apply the conditional formatting on this chart, I'll come here on the right side where you have the formatting choices, open up the columns. This is where the blue color is coming from, but I want to use this bar or the FX here, and then apply a rule based on, it should be a rule based on not the first month name, but I want the year-on-year growth rate. So if I search that measure there, and I'll say if the value is greater than or equals to not 0, but the minimum value it can get as a number, and then less than 0 as a number, I want that to be shown in red. Maybe let me take that as a starting point. I could go to more colors and have it probably just show a faint red like that and say okay. Then I can add a new rule so that if the value is greater than 0 as a number here and less than or equals to. So for this one, I want to change this to a green color, more colors, and then choose maybe a green feel like that. Choosing this at random. So the reason why it's not allowing me to say okay is because it's confused. I need to remove this 0 so that it can take that as the maximum and press OK. So as you can see, that's how it looks like currently. I can do the same with the numbers themselves, the data labels. So on the right side, if I go to the data labels, then open up the values, I want to use, instead of this gray color, FX, again I say this one should be based on the year-on-year change. And I do the same thing. If the value is greater than or equals to not 0, I remove that to be minimum number. Less than 0, then I take the red color, more colors, probably take that reddish color. Then add a new rule. If it's greater than 0 as a number but less than or equals to the maximum, I delete that. Then I want a green shade for that. Then probably I can take that one and say okay. The last one I want us to do is a matrix table. So I'll come here and choose matrix. I want this to show the breakdown per customer. So I'll go to the sales table, choose the customer name. I want to tick the sales previous year and sales growth rate so that I can see all at a go like that. But for this report, I want to go ahead and show the top 10. To do that, with the table selected, I open up the filters pane here, and then on this customer name, if I open up that drop down, so instead of basic filtering, I want to choose top N. That's fine. It will ask me for whether you want top or bottom here. I can select, then I choose to type 10 because I want 10 values. Customers, the top 10 customers, based on what value. I will drag and drop the sales measure here, then apply filter. As you can see, it will be able to give you the top 10 performing customers as such. So the next thing you can do based on this matrix table is for you to format it to look nice, space it well, and apply some shadows and all that. I will not go into those details. I'll have a detailed video on the channel. Check the description for that link for you to go into the different ways you can format a matrix table to make it look professionally and polished. So basically, I have gone ahead and formatted and spaced out things. I can go probably apply some grid lines here, maybe horizontal one, and pimp them up so that you can see how they are looking like. Okay. I can apply vertical ones as well, and I pimp that number up. So the next thing I will go ahead and apply is formatting on this page.
A few moments later,
I get this layout. I've just resized the charts here and there and rearranged them, align the different charts so that I leave some spacing in between. That's something that you can spend time on and play around with your report. But don't you think this is a good report so far? So the last thing I want to show you is that you can apply some background color to this one. So when nothing is selected on the page, I'll come to the formatting choices and click that format button, canvas background. The color here, I can choose maybe that dark color. It will not show immediately, but you need to bring this transparency to 0 like that. So that's how it will look like. Maybe if you don't like that color, you can use a different color altogether. It depends on you. Probably let me go with that dark bluish color. The next thing we can do here is to go to insert a text box. Maybe type the text here. This is your first dashboard. Of course, you need a more meaningful title for this one. Control A and apply the formatting. It should be bold. Increase the font size maybe to 40. Yeah, you could resize this one like that, and then probably the color should be white because of our background. Okay, then I can position it so that it's somewhere on the upper side of the screen. On the right side, we can check whether we have a background that is white, so I need to put that off. So this report is using the default colors, but you could go to View tab where you have the themes. You can change a different theme altogether. If you prefer a different one, then it will update the look and feel in your chart. Now the last thing I want us to do, once you create your report, how do you update monthly? So on this folder, I have a different set of data. It has complete years of data. So probably if I look for Nairobi here, you will see it goes up to December 2021. So I want to paste this data. So I want to copy these files here. Control C, go one step to the folder where we started, and I paste the data here. I want to replace the file in the destination, that's fine. When I come back to Power BI, all I need to do is to go to the Home tab and I click Refresh. So we expect this chart here that shows the breakdown per month to be full now. As you can see, it runs for the 2 years, it runs up to December. Just like that, you don't have to rework the process. The report will be ready. It's just a matter of updating your source data. So we've come a long way in this video, and if there are any concepts that were not clear, or if it's something that you want me to cover in a future video, please comment down here. I'll be happy to respond to your questions and comments. Until next time, take care.